Today, I'm excited to start a painting of a striking exotic sunset in my bush landscape and creating some nice backlit sparkling highlights in those trees. I'll be sharing my colors I mix together with some tips and techniques on how to paint clouds like this. Let's begin. There is nothing like a nice warm afternoon sunset here where I stay, and there is always an opportunity to photograph some interesting clouds with a brilliant color scheme. I decided on a bush-veld painting in preparation for a series of bush-veld scenes that I intend framing with my own unique laser cut frames. You can see how I make my frames in a previous video. Our color palette today is ultramarine blue, titanium white, Van Dyke brown, primary magenta, cobalt blue, primary cyan, cadmium orange, primary yellow, violet grey, blue grey, buff titanium, raw sienna, terverte, and brilliant rose. I proceed to do a rough draft sketch on my canvas board approximately 60 centimeters by 50 centimeters. Once that is done, I start mixing the colors of my sky first. On the palette you can see I already mixed my cobalt blue with a little cyan and blue grey. I then mix swaths of brilliant rose, buff titanium and titanium together with a little primary yellow. And another mix using buff titanium, primary yellow, titanium white and a little cadmium orange and brilliant rose. Then I proceed with orange and primary yellow in another mix and yet another pool of color consisting of violet grey and some blue grey. At this stage, I would be doing a methodical block-in using a synthetic hair flat. I would be working in a daub and dash kind of a way, and my application of paint will be quite erratic to create the beautiful patterns I wish to indicate as per the reference. The cobalt cyan mix at the top and the violet grey mix closer to the horizon. I would start with a darker pattern in the clouds first, and then move to the warmer mixes with buff titanium, primary yellow, and brilliant rose. Painting intricate clouds like these requires a slower and layered approach, building up from subdued colors which will carry the later highlighted layers on top. But it pays off to be patient when using this technique. I go over with a 2-inch dry brush to soften the edges of the clouds and let this layer dry first. One of the main factors that lead to a successful painting is to plan ahead and make sure you have enough paint mixed up to complete the journey across your canvas surface. There is nothing more frustrating running out of paint at a crucial stage of the painting. So replenishing colors is a must, and mixing more paint is definitely going to help us with our progress in our artwork. I proceed to block in the forms in the background using cool sublimated colors and insert the beginning of what is sky holes in those trees. I start blocking in the foreground grass, keeping my colors warm but muted. The paint in the sky is now dry and tacky enough for me to begin a second, more modeled layer. I go with darker cobalt blue and added a touch of ultramarine and some violet grey to the mix, and I'm creating more defined shapes in that sky. I'm using smaller round synthetic hair brushes, and I'm working to create the intricate patterns of the cloud formation. With some brilliant rose and a little orange, I start emphasizing the lighted sections of the cloud formation. Here I have to be careful, and I keep working back with the dry brush to soften edges of the clouds, and then reworking over again to help with the soft, complicated surface I am trying to create. As I'm working my subsequent layer on top of the last, my brushes become smaller. For this, I recommend an intuitive approach. You use the brush you feel comfortable with given the situation. There is no one-size-fits-all approach here. As I'm getting closer to my source of light, closer to the horizon line, my color transitions become warmer, and I gradually bring in more cadmium orange, buff titanium, and yellow into the combinations of mixes. If we build up our highlights too quickly, we can lose the overall dynamic cohesion we're trying to create in the sky. As I am looking for depth in the clouds, I warm up the color tones in increments. That sparkling light streaming in from the clouds to the back of the tree is my focal point. That is where I want my tonal climax to be and the main lighting effect. Here I'm using loads of paint loaded up on my brush and a lot of titanium white with only a hint of primary yellow. Here we can see that the modeled textured patterns in the clouds carry that light nicely. And I feel confident at this stage that my painting is going to be more or less successful. However, one of my main sticking points in this artwork was the foreground. I had to make that work in order for my painting to look complete. I worked in some darker magenta with Van Dyke brown and a little sienna for that foreground so it can contrast with the grasses in the field and I went very abstract with the grasses in the foreground, first plotting them out as shapes rather than individual blades of grasses, which could rob the painting of the interesting spontaneity I'm trying to recreate. At this stage, we can see what our artwork will look like. And now it's all about detailing the surface, crafting the tree shapes, the branches, and the negative shapes, including sky holes. I will go darker and add Van Dyke brown with some magenta to get those branches to appear dark and emphasize the character of the trees. I use fine lettering brushes to create these fine branches and details, making sure that a few larger negative shapes remain prominent to capture the character of those acacia trees, and allowing the finer branches nearer to the foliage canopies to indicate the fractured sparkling light of the sky. I build up the foliage texture using my rougher hog bristle brushes. They work best for creating the look of fine foliage of the acacia thorn tree, and I'm using some terverte green mixed to some ultramarine blue to create the darker shadows underneath the tree canopies. Overall, this is quite a dark painting, but with strong color and the limited afternoon light capturing our attention and imagination. Adding that warmer light behind those trees really helps emphasizing the fine details of those trees. And I added a rugged bush on the left side to offset the trees on the right. It just makes sense compositionally and gives a great balance to the painting. With my lettering brushes, I am adding the odd taller grasses that stick out and also helps with creating depth in that field. As always, too much detail runs the risk of ruining the overall effect of the artwork. So it's advisable to step back regularly to observe where the artwork is going. It's important to remember that less is more. That added yellow on the edge of the tree and behind the tree just does the trick, and it feels like the light is moving behind the tree. Just a few grasses here and there and the painting has come to its conclusion. I really enjoyed how these color combinations work together, and as always, I prefer to be adventurous with my color combinations. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. And if you want to see the video on how I build frames for my paintings, click on the video that appears on the screen. Until we meet again on this channel, have a great day.